Welcome everybody to the 2024 and 2023 Brizzy Awards. That is right, we are doing 2 years worth of awards tonight because I didn't get around to doing a show last year. So the Brizzy Awards generally consisted of silly awards that I just made up so that I had an excuse to talk about the games that I liked or things that I found interesting during the year. But for tonight, I'm going to evolve the show a little bit and make some changes that I'm going to be carrying forward into the future. So first, I'm going to give out a unique award, which is kind of my standard brand of award where it's just something that I make up for, to talk about one particular game, and you'll probably never see that award again. But I'm going to follow that up with a major award, which is something I plan to bring back year after year. And then for tonight, we're going to be doing something a little different. I don't know if I'll be doing this again in the future, but because I have so many games to talk about for this show, I'm going to be doing some tier listings. And I'm going to have a few guests to help me out with that. So the show will follow that format. Unique award, major award, tier listing. I'm going to do that 3 times. Follow it up with a special musical performance. And then finally, Game of the Year awards. So, with all that out of the way, let's get to it.
The Brizzy Award for Saddest Decapitation goes to Until Dawn.
When I finally got around to playing Until Dawn this year, I was determined to keep everyone alive. I agonized over every decision. I studied every totem. My fingers were primed for every QuickTime event. And it was working. Until I made one fatal mistake. While controlling my favorite character, Ashley, I made a split-second choice that seemed like the right thing to do. But that choice led Ashley directly to a gruesome death. No QuickTime events, no second chances. After the loss of Ashley, my run started falling apart and I got several other people killed. But Ashley was just the cutest, and her death still hurts the most.
The Brizzy Award for Best Graphics goes to Demon Souls Remake and Senua's Saga Hellblade 2.
I'm continually amazed at how good games can look, and these 2 games were shining examples of that. Then again, I played the original Until Dawn 9 years after it came out and thought, God damn, this looks good. So, maybe I'm just easy to impress. To you anti-graphics snobs out there, you do you, but I for one look forward to the continued simple joy of thinking, God damn, this looks good. All right, welcome everybody to the 2023-2024 Brizzy Awards Souls and Soulslike tier listing, where at the end, one of these 7 games will be promoted to my personal Soulslike Gotti. To help me out with this tier listing, I have my buddy Johnny here with me, who has played all of these games with me. All right, so just to be clear, all of the tier listings here will be my call. Johnny's just here to add color commentary and help me, talk a bit about the games and what we thought about them. And so what we're going to do is tier list them in the order that I beat them, starting with Bloodborne in 2023. So actually, I should say the first Souls game that I actually beat was Elden Ring in 2022. And that was my 2022 Game of the Year. It's on here again because I beat it again at the end of last year.
And technically this summer with the DLC.
Yeah. I was going to put that on here, but you know how people are with putting DLCs on Gotti lists. So Bloodborne was technically the second Souls game that I beat.
Okay.
But it was a big change from Elden Ring because I played Elden Ring the first time as a heavy armor shielded guy, And in Bloodborne, there really are no shields or blocking, and there's hardly any heavy armor, I don't think. It's basically all leather stuff. Yep. What?
Yeah, 2 shields. There's one shield that's a wooden shield that mocks you for using it, and then the other shield is a magic shield and actually is pretty useful against some bosses and stuff. So,
well, it was a big change in playstyle for me in that they reward you for being aggressive by replenishing some of your health if you land attacks soon after taking damage. It's also a big shift in theme, where it's much more like Victorian, Cthulhu-esque kind of theme, which is very cool. And I know Johnny would stick this right on the S tier. Hell, he'd probably give it my game of the year if he could.
This is game of the year. You know how I said how we should do this, which is put game of the year with the first one that we do and then move from there. We're done, buddy. Like, we don't need to do anything else. We're done. Okay, real talk though. As much as I do love Bloodborne, and it is absolutely my personal favorite for a number of reasons. I think out of all of these games, Bloodborne is an S tier. Like for sure. There's maybe one other S tier that I love these games. There's maybe one other S tier that I will pick out of this, but Bloodborne is that for me. I want to think about this, but I think it's the most rewarding for really getting into the game. When you learn, oh, fire is good against beast with serrated against beast, so let me use this weapon against this enemy. And it rewards you for knowing the game and really going into it. And all these games do, but this one kind of doubles down on that a little bit more.
Okay, well, I'm taking all that into advisement, but I'm going to stick it under A++.
That's fair.
Because there are some games on here that personally
there is no S blood
I
type.
enjoyed a little bit better, which we'll get to.
That's legitimate.
And speaking of Demon Souls remake,
honestly, S tier.
S tier, baby.
Yeah.
That game.
That game is so good.
It's so. I know graphics aren't everything, but it is so beautiful. Like
gorgeous.
I just love it. You know, just walking through some of those areas, just like this looks good. It feels good to play. I appreciate that it's a slower game.
It feels really nice.
Take my time. I plod through there, peek around corners whenever I can.
You were talking about Elden Ring with your shield going to Bloodborne, but then come into this, dude, you're all over the map right now. Like, that is the biggest rubber band.
All right, so trying to move through these a little quickly. If you want to hear Johnny and I talk about these games a lot, check out our podcast, Kindled Across the Sea, along with our buddy Klaus. And you'll hear us break these games down into all their little bits. At least Dark Souls right now. We're still working on that one.
Yeah, we'll get to the rest of them.
So
Dark Souls.
Dark Souls. This is the game that I bounced off of a bunch of times until I played it with you.
Mm-hmm.
And for anybody else that is like not sure if Souls games are their thing, if you're into co-op, you can play all of these games co-op. And that is the thing that converted me. So if you're not sure about them, find a buddy and tackle them together. It makes a world of difference. I know Johnny loves Dark Souls, and I know Klaus will probably show up at my door and kill me. But I'm going to put Dark Souls on an A+ tier.
I think I agree with that. And honestly, I agree with Bloodborne at A++ too. Like, much as I love it, I think it's great. Demon Souls remake.
I'm glad that we're in agreement. We beat Dark Souls 2, Scholar of the First Sin, after that. This is the one that is typically referred to as like the ugly duckling of the bunch, or the
And the
black
black
sheep.
sheep. We could say Dark Souls 2 is the ugly duckling, and then this version of it is the black sheep.
Okay. Well, I had a great time with this game.
I love this game.
I will say though that at about the 50, 60 hour mark, maybe, I was kind of ready to be wrapping it up,
It's
and it
it's a
it went
long
on for
boy.
like another 20 or 30 hours. So by
And
the
the
end,
DLCs are big too.
yeah, by the end I was kind of just ready to be done. So I feel like it overstayed its welcome just a little bit,
Hmm.
but I still really had a good time, and Majula is the best place ever. I would
It's so
live there
nice.
if I could.
Hmm. Give me a little
I'm gonna
broken
stick
shack
that.
next to the angry pigs.
All right,
Yeah, I'm with you. That's a good one. Okay, Dark Souls 3.
Dark Souls 3.
Yeah,
Um,
it's perfectly distilled,
yeah.
if you know what I mean. Like
Mhm.
it's there are, correct me if I'm wrong, but like there's no, from a Souls perspective, there are no sharp edges. It's smooth and it all functions really well, but it's also just not as interesting
Mm.
or creative or, I mean, I hate to say this because yeah, it's the third game in the series, but it's not as fresh. No, I'm with you though. It's a really, really good game. You can't get over that. Like, if you're gonna put it at A plus plus, I am not arguing that. It's
Yeah, I'm kind of
it's
between here right now.
perfect. Like, it's weird to say it's perfect and not put it in S tier, but it's like it's almost too perfect.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna stick it right alongside those two.
Sounds good.
All right, so next up is Lords of the Fallen 2023, which was our first Souls-like game on the list,
Hmm.
and I really like this game. Um,
I was very surprised and immediately enthralled by this game.
so Lords of the Fallen did two things better than FromSoft does with their games. Number one, just co-op whenever you want for however long you want. There's no getting kicked out after you kill a boss. There's no being locked out of areas. There's
Was it
no.
shared progression?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I legitimately do not remember.
But you could, if you wanted to, invite somebody at the very beginning of the game after you get through the tutorial, and you could play the entire game together without ever
Mm-hmm.
being
Mm-hmm.
separated or hindered by anything. So that was the number one thing that it did better. The second thing is the way they did the magic system. So in all these
Mm.
FromSoft games, you can have one spell equipped at a time, and you have to have some kind of item in one of your hands to be able to cast that, like a scepter or staff or something. So if you want to like cast a combination of spells, you have to like memorize, how many times do I hit up on the D-pad to get to that spell that I want, and then you have to hit another button to cast it. It makes playing magic-based characters kind of cumbersome in my opinion, because you can really only have like one spell at a time. In Lords of the Fallen, you just hold down a button to pull out your magic casting item. So you can have a shield and a sword and still
Hmm.
cast spells, or you could have a two-handed weapon and still cast spells. And then once you do that, you have access to up to 5 different spells that you can cast just by like hotkey. It's like you start
Hmm.
with I think two, and as you upgrade
Two or
your
three.
catalyst or whatever it is, you can get up to 5 spells. So you just hold a button and immediately you have 5 spells, and it
Yeah,
made it
it does like
really
an
easy
action
to like
set
combo
shift.
stuff. I thought that was great, and just the world in general in this game I thought was really compelling. It does that thing where everything is connected, one giant world, where, you know, you play for 3 hours and then you look up in the distance and you're like, oh, we were up there on that.
Dude, like that
mountain
one
just
place when we were like, yo, that thing's on fire. I want to go there. And then I think it was, about maybe 3 hours later, 2 hours later, I looked back and I was like, wait, we're at the thing that was on fire.
I love that. And it also does this cool thing where there's like 2 versions of the world where you can like look, you can lift up this lamp to like look into the other layer of the world, or you can like completely go into the other world, and it has like higher rewards but also increased risk. So there's like decisions on like whether you want to go in there or not. I'm putting this baby in S tier.
And the only other little thing I want to add is, like you said with the magic, I'm a very big consumable user in Souls games now, so I have like, you know, a bunch of nonsense on my belt, from throwing knives to a bunch of different explodey boys. I like what they did is, if you're not a magic user, you still have the ability to like use you can pull out like a hatchet and like throw a hatchet, or do a throwing knife, or throw like a little spark grenade, and all these items had different effects that were different from, say, the magic that you would do. So they were still very useful, and in times I think I ended up switching from wanting to be a magic user because there was such a variety of these items to use. So yeah, I'm with you. Dude, I'm excited for them to make a second one. I hope that they can clean that up a little bit, get a little bit more money, a little bit more time, maybe.
All right. Elden Ring.
Yeah.
S tier.
We what are we going to say about that game? We've played so many hours of this game together.
I've played that game too much. It's on... I've played it on every of the last 3 years. So it's been in a contender for 2022, 2023, and 2024. All right, and the last game, actually, this is the only one that we actually beat in 2024, not including rebeats of Elden Ring. But Remnant 2 is different in a lot of ways because it's a third-person shooter. But it has a lot of that, you know, Souls DNA where, you know, there's essentially bonfires. If you get to a bonfire, you can rest and restore your health and stuff, but it respawns enemies. There's awesome bosses to fight and stamina bars.
It's a very different kind of... It's unique because it has a little bit of that Diablo feel, but it also doesn't have any of that Diablo loot kind of system going on, right? But then it definitely has a lot of the Souls influence when it comes to secrets in the world, things that you have to pay attention to, different storylines. There technically is carry weight, but I'm sure you never ran into it.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, but it's there. It's totally there. And stamina consumption is a thing, but you also don't really notice it that much.
It's
that being said,
it's more forgiving in some ways than Souls games. Like when you die, you don't lose your souls.
You don't lose anything.
Yeah, so
the
only thing you lose when you die is just the progress you've made since your last checkpoint. Which
when we all figured out we could drink that poison and it would just kill us and get us back to where we needed to go real quick. It was like, oh, cool, awesome, thanks.
And yeah, there's also like some really cool puzzles to solve. I remember was it me, you, and Michelle that were playing? Or was it me, Michelle, and Burger? Maybe it was Burger. We were in some room where there was like these locked doors and this big massive machine in the middle with a bunch of symbols and stuff. And we spent like 2 hours in that room just figuring out a puzzle. And then like once we got all those doors opened, we were like, this is awesome. Like we didn't kill anything for the last 2 hours, but this is so fun. I'm slapping this bad boy on S tier.
It is not an S tier game in the way that like Demon Souls plays. But it is an S tier game in just being maybe the most fun that I have had out of any of these games that we have played together. I think Remnant 2 like actually wins for most fun for me personally, co-op wise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like we started playing it in some of my other co-op groups, and they were having good time with it too. Like people that don't even play Souls games typically. Mm-hmm. So it's
an easy entry appeal. Souls game. I mean, for sure.
All right. Well, now's the moment of truth. I got to promote one of these things to my 2023-2024 Gotti. Well, excuse me, Soulslike Gotti, not my Gotti. That's going to be an award later.
Dude, this is tough. I don't envy you.
Who could it be? Who could it be?
That's what I was thinking too, actually. I'm with you. It's weird to say, but dude, it's so good.
The Brizzy Award for Let's Make It Real goes to Buckshot Roulette.
While at MagFest this year, my friend Tim introduced me to Buckshot Roulette by just saying, "Here, you have to play this." We quickly had a hotel room full of people taking turns at the game and talking strategies and odds. Eventually, a couple of us decided we wanted to be able to play a game against each other. And since there was no multiplayer mode back then, we took matters into our own hands. We developed a physical way to play the game using a deck of playing cards and some dice rolling apps. Here's how we did it. First, separate out the 10 through ace of every suit and set them aside. These will represent the 5 items that you can use. I believe they've added more items since then, so just add more cards as needed. Next, roll 2 4-sided die to determine the number of live and blank shells in the shotgun. We used red cards to represent live shells and black to represent blanks. Shuffle these and place them face down in the middle. This will be your shotgun draw pile. Now, roll the 4-sided die again to determine which player goes first. Players then take turns drawing items from the item deck, starting with the player that goes first. And now play begins. A player may use an item if they wish. In this case, I used an ace, which represented a magnifying glass, so I got to take a peek at the top card of the shotgun deck. To use the shotgun on myself, I draw the card and place it in front of me. It's a blank, so I get to go again. To point the shotgun at my opponent, I draw a card and place it in front of them. It's a red shell, so they take 1 point of damage. We used dice or just physical objects to represent our life meter. So, as long as you're pretty familiar with how Buckshot Roulette plays, now you can play it in real life too. What, did you think I meant we were going to use real shotguns? However, Tim did pick up some very realistic Nerf guns we might put to use.
The Brizzy Award for Best Narrative goes to Quantum Break and Midnight Suns.
Quantum Break is an intriguing story about time travel, fate, and betrayal, complete with its own live-action series and A-list actors. But what I want to highlight is one character in particular, Beth Wilder. Beth is an ally to the main character Jack, and the closest thing to a love interest in the game. She's also the most tragic character in recent memory. I know a lot of people aren't into reading in-game notes and journals, but if you play Quantum Break, do yourself a favor and read Beth's diary.
You have to let go. I've seen it. The end of time. That is where she sent me. I was there. I've been fighting this fight my entire life, and I saw us fail.
In Midnight Suns, I expected the engaging tactical battles featuring Marvel's biggest heroes. What I didn't expect was an in-depth story of distinct personalities, relationships, and infighting among all those characters. As fun as the combat was, I had just as much fun trying to befriend heroes and bring the team together.
No time for an after-school special. Patching it through. Patching it all through.
Welcome everybody to the 2023-2024 Couch Co-op game tier listing. I have my Couch Co-op buddy Travis here with me. All right, so we're going to list these things in the order that we beat them, starting with Call of Cthulhu: Dark Corners of the Earth that we played on Xbox. So I thought this game was really cool in theme. It had this really cool mechanic where the more crazy stuff you see, the more insane your character goes. I guess that's kind of a common thing nowadays, but I think when this came out, it was pretty fresh.
Yeah, it's got some cool ideas. It's very H.P. Lovecraft. You gotta unravel a mystery in this town of Innsmouth while managing your sanity, and yeah, that's about as far as it gets fun-wise. I think it's kind of drab. It's got some weird difficulty spikes.
Yep, 100%.
Graphically, it's not really all that interesting, even for its time, I don't think.
I feel like it starts strong when you're kind of exploring this town and kind of figuring out what's going on, and then it gets, like, the further into it you get and the more combat heavy it gets, it loses a little bit of its luster. I don't know. I'm between a B and a C. I might give it the benefit of the doubt and give it a B, but what are you thinking?
Give it the C-benefit of the doubt. I would give it a C.
Okay.
I was thinking C the whole way. Yeah,
okay. I'll go with that. Stick it on C. Martha is Dead. The only game I've ever played in which I have cut somebody's face off.
Oh, yeah.
You remember
That's
that?
Your first one. I do. Yeah. That was the most interesting part of the entire game. Oh, this is the one that made us do, like, all of the intricate things for making the pictures work with the camera.
Yeah,
you had to
very
do
in-depth photography and what do you call it? Developing the film.
Yeah.
I'm kind of leaning towards C on this one as well. What are you feeling?
You're being nicer to it than me. I was
really?
looking at our list. I was like, maybe that's our D.
Okay.
We had to have a D. If we had to have a D, I think it's this one.
Yeah, we'll stick it in D. Maybe I'll move it. Maybe I'll change my mind. Maybe I'll find another game on here that I like even less than that. The Beast Inside, not The Beast Within, which I wanted to call it all the time when we were playing this. This one was pretty neat. It takes place in 2 time periods. In the more modern day, you're playing a spy who is, it's like in the Cold War era, but you've taken your family to this like house in the woods that your family owns to like kind of get away from everything. But then you kind of flash to the past where you're playing as your grandfather or great-grandfather or something like that, and there's some weird spooky stuff going on, and then in the modern time there's like spy stuff going on, like you feel like you're being, like you've seen people in the woods watching you or something, and you have these weird tools to like see.
Hunt almost.
Yeah It relied more on jump scares than tension or that sort of thing. What are you thinking? I'm teetering between a B and a C on this guy.
I actually liked it a fair bit more than the other two that we've talked about. I think I would distinguish it as a B person.
Let's do it. Infliction Extended Cut on PS4. So when you brought this over and you were like, hey, we should play this, my mind was like, okay, this is like some kind of shovelware game that somehow got a physical release. But I was really surprised by this one. I thought it was a lot of fun.
I think it punched above its weight class. Like, you could tell some guy built a house in Unity.
Yeah.
Basically. And turned it into just this horrific experience, which, in a good way. That one really stuck with me. And to the point that you and I think one or two sittings, we ended up going through all the extra special features, trying to soak up as much as we could because it was so cool.
That's a rare thing for us. We beat the game and then we went back into the game to see what else there was because we had so much fun with it.
Perfect length, I think.
I'm slapping this boy an A.
Oh, I agree 100%.
We got the first of our two bunkers. This is Amnesia the Bunker. So this one you play as a World War I soldier who is trapped in a bunker, of course. And there is some sort of creature in the bunker with you. So it plays sort of like Alien Resurrection in that regard.
Isolation.
Isolation. Where there's this constant threat somewhere in the vicinity and you have to be quiet and sometimes you gotta run and hide. There were a few times where we hit a difficulty spike where we were kind of stuck on like, how do we do this objective without the thing finding us? And we would like die over and over trying to figure it out. So that kind of hurt it a little bit. But overall, I had a pretty good time with it. What'd you think?
Yeah, I think those frustrations you're talking about, I think was because in some ways the AI was too good, which is what made the game always feel like a threat. Like you never felt like you really could outsmart it. You're just constantly afraid. You didn't know what its boundaries were. We would hide in places and be like, can it even get here? Maybe it can, maybe it can't. I don't know. You never really felt safe. This game has stuck with me since. Like, I think it comes up in my mind a lot because it was such a tense experience all the way through another one that's just beautiful. I mean, the lighting effects, and it's all predicated on light, really. Like, you have to, keep, what is it? I guess it was, or fuel. You had to keep finding fuel so you could power a generator to keep the lights on. Otherwise, you're in the dark. Mm-hmm. And you had to refrain from making noise. You couldn't run, or you couldn't. There were certain things you couldn't do to make noise, or else you would trigger it. So, yeah, everything's very, very tense. I really, really like this one.
I'm hearing from you an A tier.
Yeah, for sure.
I'd agree with that. All right, next up is our second bunker. This is just the bunker. We played this on Switch, and this is a FMV game in which you play a dude that has grown up in this underground bunker, and everybody, I want to say like pretty much everybody in the bunker's dead. And he was like very much a mama's boy because he just like grew up in this bunker with his mom, and his mom dies. And so now like he's alone in this bunker and things are breaking down. So he's having to like go to places he's never been in this bunker and try to figure out how to fix things. And
one of the first, if not the first FMV game that had really put some time into and really quickly acclimated to. I thought it would be, I mean, this is a more modern one. It's not like one that was for the Sega CD, so it's got some affordances that make it sort of an easier experience. It doesn't have like extremely long load times, obviously.
Yeah.
But it was kind of weird how quick I acclimated to it. I mean, I think there were some finicky controls that we struggled with at some point throughout that were a bit frustrating, that I think our next game actually cleaned up some. So maybe that detracted, but it was just another pleasant surprise. I think you and I both had low expectations. It didn't have a strong pedigree. It was an FMV game.
Yeah.
It's something I found on the internet, and I thought it looked cool. So it was, I don't know if it's as good as it was just a really pleasant surprise.
I'm thinking B tier.
B tier. I also wanted to remark, I actually think it's got a really good story. I really liked the way it ended. B feels right to me.
Boom. Done. So yeah, we had so much fun with that game. We played another game by the same developers. Is it Wales Interactive?
Wales Interactive, yep.
I want to say they made something else.
They did.
Oh, they made Made of Skur.
Made of Skur, that's right, yeah.
Which is another game that I beat this year. That was, after playing these two FMV games and then playing that one, I was like, what? This is the same developer?
Crazy.
But yeah, Shape-Shifting Detective. So this was, of course, FMV. This one had something like 6 to 8 different characters, and you played as a shape-shifting detective where you could take the form of all of these characters and then go talk to the other characters as that character to try to get information from them to try to figure out who murdered this person. And first of all, that's just a cool idea.
Yeah. I do remember there being some areas where we got stuck and it wasn't very clear who we should talk to or who we should talk to someone as, and that being a little frustrating. And I also remember the resolve at the ending didn't make sense in some way. Like we couldn't really justify how the ending turned out. But the ride I thought was pretty fun, if not just like really different.
Yeah. Where are you landing with this game?
I think I liked the bunker a little bit more overall, but it's close. I think those two are tight. I mean, we'd play them so close together, and they were very similar experiences.
Yeah.
It's hard to separate them. So
I'm going to go ahead and slap it up here on the B tier. I feel like it's a game I would recommend for people. So
okay.
All right. So we went from a couple FMV Switch games to new and shiny Dead Space remake. I mean, this is like an all-timer kind of horror game, right? For a reason. I had a lot of fun with it. The only real complaint I have about it is that at some point I felt like I was kind of ready to be done with it. But every time Isaac fixes something, like something else breaks, and that happens like 20 times in this game. And by like the 15th time, I was like, just let me fix this shuttle and get out of here already.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I think what's interesting is when I played this game the first time, I don't remember ever thinking that. I remember liking the game, and I don't know if it's just a product of you and I have to make time to be together, and this was just getting protracted. We were ready to move on. But I felt the same way. I felt like, dang, this game. And we don't usually play games that touch 20 hours, but this got up there. I was surprised at how many hours you could put into a Dead Space. I think in my heart, the original holds a pretty high place. The remake obviously is great and an improved version overall, but I'd already had that experience. So if the question is, how much did I enjoy playing the remake? I think I enjoyed it a B's worth, even though I think it's an A+ game. I don't replay games often anyway, but it was still great to experience that in such high def. I thought it looked great, sounded great. Just maybe not my favorite experience that we've shared with the spooky games.
I actually agree with that 100%. All right, so next we went from a new shiny to an old GameCube game. We played Resident Evil 0. I will say, we play a lot of Resident Evils just individually. We're big Resident Evil fans. This is one of the weakest Resident Evils, in my opinion.
Yeah, it says something that you and I started it some years prior, like 8 years ago. We had to resurrect it because we were like, we kind of want to play them in a certain order, or at least we wanted to like clean up some, and we went back and tackled it. And Yeah, it's pretty painful. Like, it's a lot of just inventory management over and over again between two characters, and I think it retains enough Resident Evil in terms of the action. I never felt like it was weak there, but the whole split character mechanic got really tiresome.
I kind of want to put this one on a C tier.
Kinda. I think if I had to like say one good thing about it, I thought the whole game's design was kind of cool. The way you kind of circle back on yourself and like all the levels, it was designed pretty cleverly to fit what it had to do. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think it's in terms of fun, it's about a C for me.
Cool. So after that, we decided we wanted to play a good Resident Evil. Actually, we hadn't decided what we were going to play next, and I just bought this and said, "Come on over. This is what we're playing."
Oh, hell yeah, brother!
So we played Resident Evil 4 Remake on the Series X. It had been so long since I played the first one. I don't know exactly what the remake improved and what it didn't, but the original was such a good one. So,
yeah.
What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I never played the original, so this was my first and only impression with it, and I thought it was pretty awesome. I remember there being times I would ask you, like, dude, was this in the original? Because it was so awesome. I was like, What did that look like 20 years ago? This is crazy. So yeah, it was a pretty impressive game. Definitely pretty high on my list of Resident Evils ever, and certainly of games that we've played.
Well, I think this is an easy A.
Yeah.
Kaboom.
Without a doubt.
The Bridge Curse: Road to Salvation, which we played on PS5. Some students perform a ritual to, I don't know, contact a ghost or something, and then shit goes haywire. And then you spend the rest of the game trying to prevent these guys from dying. When we first started this game, we played for about 15, 20 minutes. And we couldn't get past the first part of the game. So it's like you go through this cutscene to kind of set up the story, and then it's like, okay, run from this evil spirit. And no matter what we did, that spirit would just catch us and murder us just over and over. And we're like sitting there trying to figure out, can it see me if I crouch and I'm hiding behind this thing? Yes, it can. Will it detect me if like I start running for this thing over here once it turns around? Yes, it will. It's just like everything we tried, it was just killing us. And I was ready to like just throw in the towel.
I know, same here, because there's another one that was like, I saw a trailer and I was like, yeah, I'll throw money at that. That looks great. Because it did look great. And
yeah.
I was like, well, maybe they're not all winners. Maybe I finally picked a complete dud. But once we did that breakthrough, then it got kind of fun. Like, but you really got to figure out the AI out of the gate.
Yeah.
And after that, there's really, I don't remember there being a ton of friction at all after that. I mean, maybe a little bit, but yeah, that was rough.
I'm leaning towards a B tier on this. I feel like it was slightly better than average. Like if somebody said, should I play Bridge Curse? I'd be like, yeah, that was pretty fun.
Yeah.
How about you? You good with that? You're probably thinking a C.
No, I think B is good. I was trying to think like it kind of fits right there with the bunker or something like that in my head.
Yeah. All right, last game, Dino Crisis. We beat this like 2 days ago. So I think this was a pretty competent Resident Evil-like.
Yeah.
The voice acting was real cheesy. Had a good time with that.
It felt pretty self-aware about how cheesy it was. It was
yeah.
They're like, we made a spooky game, but there's dinosaurs. Like, they kind of knew.
My biggest gripe with this game is so many times we were like, what are we supposed to do next? It doesn't really tell you explicitly the things you need to know. Like, it'll say, you need an ID card with the right credentials to get in this door. And you're like, okay, what do I have to do? Just find an ID card? No, you have to find an ID card. You have to find a dead guy and get his fingerprint. You have to find that guy's like employee code or something in a note somewhere. And then you have to put all these things together at this room that, isn't noted on the map in any way. You just got to remember that there was this computer there. So we had to break down and look at the walkthrough several times on this. The dinosaurs in this were so hard to kill.
And pointless to kill. They respawned, or at least
yeah,
they would spawn other ones. So
yeah, they wouldn't respawn like immediately, but like the second time you went through that hallway, they'd be back.
And they took so much of your ammo to kill, it just was not worth it. So we ended up beating the game, killing less than a handful, maybe 8 to 9 dinosaurs most, and most of those were either bosses or just out of frustration because it attacked us. Everything about the game seemed kind of lazily translated or written. Like,
my favorite was the materials carrying out room or something like that.
Carrying out room, carrying in room. Like, nothing had any personality to it other than just having pretty decent looking dinosaurs. So mechanically it was all right, I guess. Like moving around, tank controls, it felt reminiscent to Resident Evil, but it was a little more frustrating and certainly felt lower budget in a way, even though it's still Capcom.
Yeah. Do I want to be mean and give it a D, or do I want to be nice and give it a C? Where would you slap it?
Personally, I think there's enough. It brings me enough joy, one, that it exists, and two, that it spawned a sequel that we're playing. Mm-hmm. That I don't know. I kind of appreciate it a little more than I liked it, if that makes any sense. And in that way, I give it a C. Would I recommend it? If I recommend it, I'm gonna have asterisks.
Yeah.
Beside it. Like, yeah, you should play it, but don't try to finish it.
Or if you do, have somebody there with you so you can pass off the controller when you get frustrated with it. All right, we'll be nice and give it a C. All right, so now is the moment of truth. I'm going to pick one of these games to promote as my 2023-2024 Couch Co-op Game of the Year. And I will pick Infliction Extended Cut. Did you see that coming?
No, what?
You thought I was going to pick Resident Evil, didn't you?
Either that or our other A game, The Bunker. That's correct. I didn't see that coming.
I think it is... Part of it is the surprise factor. It was not expected. Like, I've played Resident Evil 4, the original, before, knew it was a good game, knew this was going to be a good game. I've played all the Amnesia games before, so I assumed that would be fun too. But Infliction was just like out of left field surprise. So I feel like that, I don't know, it made more of an impact on my gaming year.
That's cool.
So yeah.
Sometimes you take a chance on a random game you see for sale, and it pans out.
So if you haven't played it, go check it out.
For sure. Get inflicted upon.
All right, appreciate it, Travis.
Yeah, man.
Catch you later.
Thanks for playing games with me. Bye.
The Brazzy Award goes to Starfield.
Since the release of Morrowind, the Bethesda RPG has been my most loved and most played type of game. But while I enjoyed my time with Starfield, something about it just didn't hook me like Elder Scrolls or Fallout did, and I wasn't really sure why. But then I thought about what made those games so fun, and for me, it was the sense of freedom and discovery I felt when looking out at the landscape, seeing something interesting in the distance, and just going to see what it was. And while you're making one of these journeys, you'll come across even more interesting things to discover. You might set off intending to investigate a tower you saw in the distance, only to find yourself in a massive underground labyrinth. It's a very organic and satisfying way to explore and discover the world. However, this doesn't exist in Starfield. Planets are typically just procedurally generated landscapes dotted with prefab buildings. There's nothing interesting or unique on the horizon to draw your attention. And when exploring the galaxy, you're just looking at a star map, where no stars or systems have any real defining features. There's nothing drawing me to the next star system outside of a quest marker telling me where I need to go. So exploration starts to feel like just following a breadcrumb trail rather than organic discovery. Again, Starfield is not a bad game. I enjoyed it. But for me at least, it just doesn't have the staying power of Bethesda's previous games.
The Brizzy Award for Best Use of Music goes to Dark Souls 2 and Alan Wake 2.
To be perfectly honest with you, I don't remember most of the music in Dark Souls 2, but that doesn't matter because it wins this award based solely on the music that plays in the hub area, Majula. The melancholic chimes mixed with the sound of the wind and the crashing waves just hits the perfect mood. Remedy is known for its action set pieces set to amazing music, but they took it to the next level for Alan Wake 2. There are two big action sequences set to music, one of which features the song Herald of Darkness, which is a 13-minute masterpiece that recounts all the events of Alan Wake 1 and 2, which you may be familiar with even if you haven't played the game.
What the hell?
But they also included completely original songs between every chapter that echo the thoughts of Alan and Saga and feature a variety of artists. My personal favorite of the bunch is No One Left to Love.
There is no one left to love. And there's no life left to guide us home.
Welcome everybody to the 2023-2024 Brizzy Awards tier listing of 4-player co-op games. And to help me with this, I've got my Wednesday co-op group with me. We have Michelle,
Woohoo!
Pam,
Hello.
and Burger Champ.
Bienvenidos.
All right. As with the other ones, we're going to be tier listing these things in the order that we beat them, starting with Vermintide 2, which was the first one we beat in 2023. This is a first-person kind of hack and slash. I don't know, what would you call it? Like a Left 4 Dead-like kind of thing?
Yeah, it's like Left 4 Dead with rats.
Yeah. Rats and magic.
Yeah.
I like this one a lot. I think everybody felt the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah.
This was a go back to game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it had some of the best voice acting. I don't know if you can do your character, Burger.
But I can't remember any of the things he said. But he talked like this all the time.
So I'm thinking this goes in the great category. You guys feel the same?
Honestly, for me, I would put Game of the Year just because based off of this list
Okay.
for me.
You know what?
Game
You know
of
what?
the year.
No. You've pointed out I've made a mistake. I forgot to mention. We're gonna tier list everything below Game of the Year, and then at the end, I'm gonna pick the Game of the Year.
Okay, then yes, this is great.
Then that works.
This is great.
Cool.
Yeah.
This is great.
I think this is great.
Love this game.
All right.
I was the best at this game. That's why it's the best game. 'Cause
Yeah,
Michelle
you were the
kicked ass.
best.
Oh, yeah.
And I
The
constantly set myself on fire.
Good, really good post-match stat screen
Yeah.
for Vermintide 2. Really good.
So Cannibal Cuisine, it is overcooked, but you have to kill people and cook them for your god and feed him before he like gets too angry and I don't know, kills you or something. I didn't think it was as good as Overcooked or the other cooking game we'll be talking about in a bit. But it was something to play. I don't know. Would you guys be like decent or it was just something to play?
It was just something to play.
I would agree with that. The bosses, I remember being very frustrating.
Yeah.
And there were these non-cooking levels where we had to like throw things off the edge of a ledge and things like that that were very frustrating. It was playable. It wasn't horrible, like unplayable, like some of these are. But I mean, it was fine. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah. I think, at least it's 4 players. It was fine.
Cool. All right. Next up is Proteus, which is, how would you describe this? Like, is a Doom-like?
Doom.
Doom-like, yeah, for sure.
I thought it was pretty fun. It was kind of mindless. It was just run around and kill stuff. There was no real thought involved to it. Sometimes it had really cool like effects and like explosions and things like gibbing and everything, but at times it got overwhelming and I couldn't even tell what was happening on the screen.
I didn't remember we played it, so I'm gonna say this is decent because I remember like it's fine. It was fine for a shooter, but it did get very like messy.
Here's what puts it up to decent: the fact that you can at any point
Teleport.
to anyone else on your party was the best.
Yes.
Yeah, that was
Yes.
excellent. And it needed it because the map was not a good part of the game.
Yeah.
The map was trash.
All the rooms looked the same. The map was no help.
Yeah. But it was still decent, I think.
Yeah.
I don't regret playing it.
No.
All right, Redfall.
You better swing that down.
You tell me when I'm getting warm, PD.
There you go.
There we go.
I do want to say this wasn't as bad as the media made it out to be, but that is to say, it was not good.
It was not good.
It was
Yeah.
not good. It was very sparse, very boring. The fact that we all had separate cutscenes was really weird. And it had no end boss, no final boss at all.
Yeah, it was just very anticlimactic and just the same kind of enemies running around the map. And yeah, it wasn't fun. All the special abilities sucked.
Yeah. I had like one that I used. That was it.
The elevator one was the only one we ever used with any consistency, and it barely worked.
It had a lot of potential, I think, too, which makes it even worse that it wasn't better. All right. Everybody's favorite game that we played, Jumanji.
There needs to be a level lower. Lower.
Can I-
Really good next to Redfall.
Yeah.
Just fell
How
off
do we
the
make
chart.
this lower? Yep.
Can I just remove
that
it
as
from the
spite.
tier list?
No, put it last. Last place 100%. Because we all played this out of spite because it was $30 frickin' dollars.
Yeah.
Did we
something
finish?
ridiculous.
Did we finish it? I thought we quit.
No, we finished it
Wait,
because it was only 4 levels.
Yeah.
Oh, it was 4 levels. That's why.
We,
so buggy and bad.
And it was worst for Pam because she A, paid full price, and B, every time we went to a new level, it changed her controls.
Oh yeah.
Opposite.
It would not save my invert y-axis.
Yeah, so avoid that game if you're ever curious about it.
Yeah, oh boy.
All right, Dead Island Definitive Edition. I had a fairly good time with this. It wasn't my favorite thing to play, but it was interesting.
I liked it. I liked all the different weapons. It was fun to fight the zombies. This also had, for the most part, a warp to your party or warp to the quest giver, which was really nice. Like some of the parkour type stuff was cool, even though it felt like it came very late in the game for some of the traversal abilities.
Yeah, I thought it was good. The only drawbacks for me were that we spent so much time in the sewers over and over again, and driving was obnoxious.
Driving was, I had a lot of fun when we drove though. Like it was obnoxious,
driving,
but also
driving was fine unless you were in the military van that had the tiniest window to look through when you're driving. But I think this game is decent. I don't think it's as good as Vermintide, but it's way better than Cannibal Cuisine.
Oh yeah.
This the one that made us? Oh no, this isn't the one that made us split up at the end. That was
Dying Light.
Yeah.
Dying Light. Okay, yeah. I liked this one.
Cool.
Decent. Yeah.
All right, Myth Force. So this one has awesome art style, Saturday morning cartoon stuff. But it was not great.
There's very few enemies. There's not a lot of enemy variety. Every map was just a reshuffling of the same rooms.
Yep.
And there were just too many systems that outright didn't work at all. The choosing your boons or whatever was broken half the time. It would soft lock you if you tried to go into a menu.
It's a shame because it looked really nice.
Yeah.
But it was very buggy as well.
Really
well,
like
the
the
shooting
concept,
didn't even feel that bad. But there were times where like one of us couldn't move or couldn't go through our full attack animation.
And enemies were stupid spongy and just boring. I think it's better than Jumanji, but worse than Redfall.
I agree with that.
I agree with that.
You think it's better than Jumanji, but worse than Redfall? Is that what you said?
In between Redfall.
And there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is the one tier list where the bottom is going to be pretty crowded. Unfortunately, we've played most of the good stuff, so we're scraping the bottom of the barrel. Speaking of
every podcast,
Warhammer Chaos Being, Diablo-like.
Oh my god!
Did you forget all about these? Did you?
Yeah, 1000% forgot about this because this was also probably trash because nothing will ever beat the Vermintide Warhammer. And I thought that this was like going to be like that, and it was not at all.
It was not at all.
Now, I would say this is probably goes in the at least it's 4-player tier. It wasn't broken in any way. The biggest sin it commits is that it's very boring.
Very boring.
And the levels are very samey, but it's way better than Redfall, Myth Force, or Jumanji, I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. At least it's 4-player.
Okay. I'll go along with that. My big problem with it was just that basically the only thing you do in the game is combat, and the combat was boring. You just mash the same button over and over. Occasionally you get a stronger ability off a cooldown, so you use that, and you see more numbers come up for a second, and then you go back to mashing the other button. But yeah, I guess it was 4 players. So
well, and unlike a game that we'll talk about here very shortly, even the combat didn't look cool. You know, they were just very generic animations. All the enemies look kind of the same. All the dungeons kind of look the same, only this one's purple instead of red. And it just felt like the bulk of the game was running to talk to a guy to get a mission, and then running all the way across the map to the dungeon, and then running back to the guy with the mission, and then running, you know. That was a huge amount of the game.
Yeah. All right. Next up is Plate Up, another Overcooked like. I'm probably the one person in the group that tends to not like this type of game that much.
Because you get overwhelmed.
Stressful ones.
But this one I actually thought was pretty cool because it does some things different. It lets you customize your like dining room layout and your kitchen layout. So there's on top of the, the frantic like cooking things and getting them served, there's also a bit of strategy involved. And that I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I liked leveling up as you went and getting new recipes or appliances for your kitchen. That was fun. I didn't love that it was sort of the roguelike formula where you'd have to start over. Like if something started going wrong, it went wrong real fast.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I think one thing that elevates this, I think we played this for 3 nights or whatever.
We played for a while.
Was that we thought it was impossible the first time we played it. Like absolutely impossible. But through learning the methods and things like that and figuring out what did and didn't work in our kitchen, we easily beat it when we finally finished the full week,
Yeah.
And I liked that sense of progression.
Yeah. Great.
I'm kind of inclined to put this up here. What do you guys think? Would you go that high?
I would. I'd go that high after Vermintide.
Sure.
Yeah, it's not better than Vermintide, but
No.
It was one of the better games we played this year.
Yeah.
All right. Diablo 4.
It's a 4-player game.
Yeah.
I don't even know. Is it
Polished.
better than Redfall?
I mean, the most polished game, I think that we played all year or the last 2 years. It looks nice. That has like amazing cinematic at the beginning. That was the best part of the whole game. But it was also just boring.
Yeah.
And it took so long to kill everything.
Yep.
Even it took longer to kill everything in a 4-player than like occasionally I would just like, what is this like alone? And I killed everything so much faster than by myself.
Yeah, that was really frustrating.
In this game, the abilities looked cool. Like I had that fire dragon thing, and Pam had like animals following her around. She could turn into a bear and stuff like that. That kind of stuff was cool, but I don't think the combat was that much more engaging than in Chaos Bane. Like, to be honest, there was more to the world. There was more to do as far as like when you're in a town and more people to talk to and more missions to take. But in the moment to moment, I don't think it was that much more engaging than Chaos Bane. You're just hitting more buttons.
I personally think it was better than Chaos Bane.
It definitely is.
But I don't know if it deserves to be decent or not. What do you guys think? Should we just stick it in here?
I think before Cannibal Cuisine.
Yeah, I think it can be the best of that tier.
That category.
All right. Last game, Moving Out 2.
I liked most of it. I thought a lot of the levels were cool. I liked that it switched up the mechanics fairly frequently. So even when we did come across one that no one was really a fan of, we moved on to something else fairly quickly. It did overstay its welcome a bit, but I felt that in general the game was pretty good.
Yeah, the variety of levels were really nice. The creativity of some of the levels was really well thought out. It got grindy.
It did.
When you have to build up your fart levels.
Yeah.
It got a little grindy. And then if we had known from the beginning, like ostensibly you have to beat all the levels to unlock the last level, we might have just started to do that from the beginning. But instead, once we got close to the end, we had to start going back and collecting stars in these levels or these levels. If we had known what the overall goal was before we got to the end, if it had made it kind of a little more clear, we wouldn't have had to spend so much time figuring out what levels we had and hadn't finished.
Yeah.
Or maybe it could have made it more clear if there wasn't so much fucking bullshit dialogue that it actually explained it in a way that was a better, like more direct versus like every level. There's like 10 minutes of dialogue before you start the level. Like it was too much.
The voice for the cardboard was the worst sound I've ever
Yep.
heard in a game. It was
Hated
so
it.
bad. It was so bad. Also, that there doesn't need to be a map in these games. We don't need to ride around in a van and figure out where a ramp is to get to a random spot.
Yeah.
We don't need it.
We don't. And I'm gonna be the only one to control, and you guys are just sitting there going, "Michelle, drive better." Like, oh God, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying to get up this like little waffle ramp thing. Like, no.
All right, so I'm feeling that everybody's kind of on decent.
It's decent. It's decent.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, so now I'm going to pick one to be my Gotti for this show. I think it's going to be pretty obvious for this one.
It better be.
Redfall.
Vermintide. Yeah, I'll just put Jumanji up here.
Oh my God. Briz, I would disown you.
All right. Well, that was a little bit anticlimactic, but I had fun. So thank you guys for joining me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's play more games.
Yeah, let's turn this off and go actually play some co-op.
Game of the Year 2023 goes to It Takes Two.
Flashback to 2020. As a lover of co-op and a fan of Hazelight's previous game, A Way Out, I was excited to see the reveal of their next co-op focused game at the Game Awards.
At his next game, here is my buddy, he really is my friend, Joseph Ferres. Hey, Joseph.
What's up, Jeff? So nice to be back at the Game Awards. As you can see, I'm in the middle of a mocap shoot, working on our next game, It Takes Two. Trust me when I say this, Hazelight's next co-op only experience, It Takes Two, is gonna blend narrative and a huge variety of gameplay never done before. And today, we're gonna have a gameplay reveal, a word exclusive. I know you like word exclusive, but this one is even extra exclusive, my man. It's coming out March 26th. Enjoy the trailer. Goodbye, boom.
This is the story of a magical king.
However, when the trailer rolled, I was immediately disappointed to see what looked like a colorful, Pixar-like game for, I assumed, little kids. I kind of wrote the game off at that point. However, flash forward to the 2021 Game Awards, and it wins Game of the Year over Resident Evil Village, which was my personal gotti, and Metroid Dread, among others. Over the next couple of years, I kept hearing nothing but good things, so when it hit Game Pass in 2023, I figured I had no more excuses to keep ignoring it. As evidenced by this award, I was blown away. The game wasn't childish as I originally thought, it was simply playful. Each level sees your characters using a unique set of tools that work in tandem in fun and creative ways. The diversity of each level and the tools you're given to navigate them keeps the minute-to-minute gameplay fresh and keeps your mind engaged. Transition areas between levels are also filled with a variety of things to play with and 1v1 games for a bit of friendly competition to mix things up. The game is also smartly designed in that the levels teach you how to work together using your tools and then puts those skills to test with a creative boss fight. The toolbox fight is a top 5 boss fight for me. I've never been so thrilled to nearly be sawed in half. In short, It Takes Two was just pure fun, start to finish.
This is a story of collaboration!
Game of the Year 2024 goes to Alan Wake 2.
At the beginning of Alan Wake 2, the series' new protagonist, FBI agent Saga Anderson, has just arrived in Bright Falls and has this exchange with a local.
Saga Anderson, as I live and breathe. I thought we'd never see you back here after that awful, awful thing happened to your baby girl. How are you? I'm sorry. Who are you? I don't know what you're talking about. It's me, silly. Rose. You know me. I don't think I do. And what horrible thing happened to my baby girl? She drowned. Your daughter. That's so weird you don't remember. How do you know I have a daughter?
This off-putting exchange was a great indicator of the type of story I was about to embark on. And Remedy is uniquely positioned to bring this Twilight Zone meets Twin Peaks horror story to life. Remedy has teased the possible connections of their games for years, such as this chalkboard in Quantum Break that mentions Alan Wake. But the connections weren't made canon until Control's AWE DLC officially linked the worlds of Control and Alan Wake. But what about Quantum Break? Well, Remedy doesn't hold the license for Quantum Break, so they can't directly use that IP. But Bright Falls Sheriff is played by Sean Ashmore, who also plays Jack Joyce in Quantum Break. And his name Tim Breaker is pretty close to Time Breaker. And there's this.
How's your search for Mr. Door going?
It's not great. This dream we're in, putting a lot of roadblocks in my way.
So you think this is a dream?
I'm not ruling it out. You know, my dreams have always been incredibly vivid. They feel real until the second I wake up. In the dreams, I'm often someone else. A different person with a different name, living a different life in a different world. It's alternate realities, maybe.
But all that said, Tim is a relatively minor character in Alan Wake 2. He's just a good example of the layers of mystery that Remedy weaves through the story. For every question that gets answered, 2 new questions arise. On top of the horror and mystery, Remedy also sprinkles a healthy dose of weird. The Koskela brothers being a prime example.
Yako, we're going to a cool guy's house to drink some brewskis. Are you coming? No, Ilmo. I'm very busy wearing a turtleneck and drinking wine like an asshole. Oh dear.
Or the optional 15-minute long live-action Finnish movie, Nightless Night, that I totally sat and watched during both of my playthroughs. And of course, the aforementioned use of music, which Remedy also excels at. In short, Alan Wake 2 is the most Remedy-ass game yet, and an utterly unique experience that shouldn't be missed.
What the hell?
From what I've gathered, you grew up nice and sheltered with Mama's pretty stories and your own made-up fury. And Mama gave me a magic clicker. Well, yes, I think it's true and fair to say